If AI failed on your job site today or inside an autonomous system at 30,000 feet, would you know why? And more importantly, would you have seen it coming? That's exactly where we're starting today. Welcome to Shifting Pathways, where practitioners and leaders get real about how work is actually evolving. I'm your host, Sapna Sheth. Today's conversation sits at the intersection of AI, governance, and trust. Specifically, in environments where getting it wrong isn't a productivity problem. It's a safety problem, a cost problem, and a schedule problem. We're looking at two real scenarios: a contractor bleeding margin from rework and safety incidents, and an aerospace team struggling to trust autonomous systems. The question I have for our panelists today is, where should AI touch the work first? To dig into that, I have four brilliant minds in the room with me, each bringing a completely different lens. You'll get to know them through the conversation. I do want to briefly just introduce each of you. Jenny Moshe brings a lens of trust and workforce adoption in construction AI. Manu Mohan represents strategy and ROI, turning AI buzz into business decisions. Ken Collins brings 37 years in mechanical roles to keep it grounded in field reality. And definitely not least, Jim Sturham, who has been in defense and aerospace, the person in the room has experienced where AI has to be mission critical before it takes off. So with that, and by the way, everybody has a much deeper biography that I want the audience to all get to know. So please visit their LinkedIn, make sure that you're getting a lot more familiar with their backgrounds. This is just a very short snippet of their experiences. But with this, let's get into it. Where should AI touch the work first? Jenny, I'd love to start with you.
I love this question because AI is so abstract sometimes. And I think what I often do is ask people, where is your most precious expertise and the knowledge that you can't do without? And that's often in the bottlenecks of the business. And so I like to start there, and it can be field, back office, depending on the culture. There's a lot of aspects to figuring out where to start. I wouldn't start with your most critical workflow.
Yeah, Jenny, I have to agree with you. It's usually the low-hanging fruit which brings the most ROI as a pilot. That's where the entry point is, what I've noticed in the field.
I would like to add that I think there's an entry point or less of a barrier of entry when you try to get to the executive level and their attention, and safety is there all the time. Mm-hmm. There are matrices, there are KPIs, there are dashboards in every organization on safety. And I think if you can introduce AI up at that level there, it only brings a multiplication factor to everything else in the workflows through construction. You know, all the data is there in safety too, generally in construction companies. And so AI can really assemble all that information and look for risk factors and trends. That's where you would get the buy-in, clearly is through the safety portion. I'd hitchhike off that.
That's a really good point I want to add into, Ken. I love what you're saying, and safety and quality are often a starting point because your safety and quality folks are shared across projects. Mm-hmm. And so they are resource constrained. And so I see, I have an example now working with a company that's using AI to analyze their high-risk activities and all of the manipulation they do with tracking and scheduling those activities across projects to create visibility and reduce the burden on the superintendents to call the safety director to update them when there's changes to the schedule.
Yeah, I think there's some companies out there that I've heard safety chatbots with loading up the company safety manuals, all the incident reporting and near miss reporting that's coming along with that. And so that helps foremen and superintendents get information quickly and accurately in those kinds of arenas to head off and prevent injuries to employees.
One of the things that is starting to come out here is that there's lots of different AI tools that are out there. You talk about quality control, and there's things like advanced digital perception, audio perception, advanced automated testing, and things like that, not just kind of large language model collection of that type of data and providing information back. So there's lots of different AI tools that are out there. And as I think about the safety aspect of it, where those tools are being used and implemented, you may have to make special arrangements or boundaries based on that. Yeah.
But Jim, you're speaking my language. I think I warn people against collecting a variety of AI tools and not creating an enterprise approach. And especially with chatbots, like if you're going to pour all of your intellectual property and your knowledge into a chat interface of sorts, it should be around your own company's context
That's
engine.
right.
I think that is more and more important, not just tossing it to public LLMs, not even in certain instances of internal co-pilots. I would say you need to be creating an approach to your own enterprise context engine because you own your company context and that is your differentiator.
It's the hill I will die on because that's the biggest hurdle sometimes that I have to go through explaining why we need to do strategy first and not just jump into let's get this. I saw a demo on that. I looked good. AI needs to touch a certain part of your business, not everything. Like not everything can be given to a chatbot.
Yeah, and when you're talking about this difference between what I'll call business operations, which I think a lot of what we've talked about so far, and use of AI actually in the systems. And when you talk about using AI in business operations and things like that, there's always this, humans have the final decision. We use AI, they're a tool for us and things like that. Once we actually start embedding AI into the end use systems, humans may or may not, we understanding what that strategy is and what decisions we are absolutely going to offload to those AIs and what will be decision aids for humans is part of that strategy as well.
When you start thinking about, let's say that this organization, mid-sized company, they're not getting overwhelmed with AI. They're not doing a collection of AI tools, right? They're pretty strategic on their approach. They're going to determine, based on what y'all have mentioned, a diagnostic has revealed to you how you're going to implement one AI solution. Now, in a high-risk environment, if this AI solution fails, and I want you to kind of think about it like, what would fail about it? What are is it the data being weak? Is it being fed the wrong information, right? Let's kind of collect some of those thoughts and then determine what would be the real root cause issue. Could it be process? Could it be the AI? Could it be people?
Yeah, in construction, I can address that. So where the margins are pretty slim to begin with, you're only as good as the standardization in your company, the SOPs, your workflow processes, and all those things that are tied to productivity. Where AI can come in, I believe, is on the back end of that and reduce all the variability with those processes. Without the processes and not being ultra efficient, AI is just not going to be as effective as it can be. And so I think you need to get those things down pat and in a rhythm and implemented throughout your company on a consistent basis. Then you now can collect data and information pretty quickly and accurately to use AI as a multiplier in the back end of productivity. That's just my view there.
I was actually talking to a construction owner, and he's like, well, I'm having a hard time with, I have to give away with jobs because I don't have the manpower to do the estimates. And I said, well, have you looked into AI doing your estimates? He's like, yeah. I can do that, but what good would that? The explanation that I gave him was, look, you can have AI do the estimates for you. However, I do think estimators should look at the problem, should look at your solution and what's coming out of the AI to make sure that the estimates match somewhat according to what SOPs have said before, right? You cannot just trust AI to just give you an answer like, oh, I'm going to bid this and this is my lowest bid. Human eyes need to be involved in that estimates because, like you said, margins are very slim. A small mistake could cost the company millions of dollars. So I believe that human judgment layer is always involved in at least in estimates that I'm
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would add to that too that most construction estimating, once it's completed, is validated based on historical
Correct.
output and labor hours and material costs and things like that. Where AI could come in is to assemble all that history information and make sure that estimates, when they are procured, are accurate in comparison to what we performed in the past. AI tools are also in there for job forecasting as well to estimate. So estimated to complete based on where we are today and things like that. So it helps create some more forecasting levels in construction where that you can identify trouble areas early, and the earlier you can detect those trouble areas, the better chance you have to adapt and come in at estimate or even better.
You're spot on. I think we have to have a human in the loop everywhere we go. We don't hire an intern and then let them go. I think of AI as an intern or assistant and finding the area where they can contribute and learn your business, but you also have to review their work. So, Sapna, you mentioned a diagnostic approach. I like to use a workshop approach as often as possible in person. I fly all over the country right now to do workshops to see the whites of the eyeballs, because I think there's something valuable when people start talking about their work and where there's friction and stress. And I like to say stressed is, where the points of failure often emerge. And so I think of AI as a very helpful intern assistant, but there's always got to be a human expert that knows and can review the outputs of that. And I still hate to think of AI as a tool. Yes, it's a capability, but if you think of it like a human, an intern, and somebody learning, it helps provide a better context. And I think, I don't know if you've heard, stressed spelled backwards is desserts. And I like to think of AI as dessert and the sprinkles on top. And so if you get to a point where there's stress, that's a great opportunity to think of or look at where AI might help.
So,
And we talk when I address things like a diagnostic or an assessment, not a fill in the blank assessment, fill in the bubble assessment, right? It is we're digging in, bring me all your thought leaders, your executives, the right leaders, just like you would a stakeholder meeting. I love what you said though about, getting in front of people, because that is the human experience that you're trying to gain from an organization, and then implementing at that point, continually refining with your people at the table, not just in mind, but at the table.
So Jenny, your analogy to an intern resonates with me, but I do have experience in essence handing things off to an AI. So again, when I talk about quality control and automated testing and visual inspections and things like that, I don't have another human following up my AI. I've taught my AI to do that job and I've offloaded it to do that. When I launch systems, and when I say launch systems, they take off and I'm no longer directly talking to them. If I have AI on that aircraft, yeah, I no longer have a human in the loop. I may have a human on the loop, but I'm trusting the AI to do that. And that level of trust and safety is not easy. There's lots of technical work that needs to go into that. There's lots of operational safeguards, things like that need to be put into that. Again, versus I think what you were describing, or again, I'm using the terminology business operations, where having a human in the loop is much easier to do. My experience is that there's lots of other AI applications where we have 100% trust the AI to do those things, but I don't have a human that's checking the AI's work. But how you get there is a disciplined, structured approach so that you can hand that off.
I like that a lot, because it now kind of goes into the space of, if you are considering trust between humans and the system, what are the signals that you start seeing that things are starting to go astray or are not meeting the vision or the goals that you expected? And I'm going to assume we've all created a 30, 60, 90-day kind of idea of what you're getting out of this thing, and it's being tested and monitored. But I'd like to actually put that into the conversation. Like, what does that look like? And what signals are you leveraging to know that, hey, something's not quite right?
I think if you're focused on outcome-based AI implementation or approach, you have to have your success criteria like you would any other project or person's role and understand what done means or good value means. Because in AI, I actually said the word done, but there is no concept of done. And I like, Jim, to your point, we have gotten AI to a point where we have checks and balances in place, whether it's a stream of agents, but there are compliance agents that are monitoring different agents and recipes and pieces of those agentic workflows to get it to a point where you can trust it without a human in the loop. So absolutely. And for sure, when we start to build things like, certified payroll compliance, you need the humans to review the answers until you're up and running, until you get to certain milestones of compliance and acceptance, right? So it's 70% accurate, it's 80%, and so on. And so I think defining your success criteria is vital to considering AI successful. Because if you hired someone in, how do you know they're successful in 90 days? And I think we've got places where we're measuring the rate of attrition. And so it's been more difficult, I think, in this era than ever to define what those success criteria are, because it's not straight out ROI on the profit and loss statement necessarily. And CFOs only want to hear so much about the time saved, because time saved means I can't bill the client. So we've got to look in other ways and areas of measuring our returns and our outcomes.
I heard it. You talked about transformational change and that whole thing, Jenny. Like, as a change, CCMP is like one of those standards that you follow from a integrity perspective, but also it's all about what is your vision, just defining your why at the beginning so that you can really develop the end measure and the success criteria.
The other thing, especially when you're talking about most of the AIs that are out there, when we implement an AI, it's not a static model. It will continue to change and evolve no matter kind of what application, unless you make a decision to lock it down at a specific state. So at some point, you have to go back and do some backward testing to make sure that the things that it gave you or assumptions that were made early are still valid as it goes through. And this is, again, maybe one thing where AI and humans don't necessarily parallel each other. AI has the potential to learn and change much faster than I'll say the average human. There are some humans that can learn and change much more quickly, akin to AI. But you can't assume that the AI that you implemented X number of months ago is still necessarily the same AI that you're operating today.
That's exactly how, AI was built on the learnings of SLD, software development life cycle, right? The agile methodology is like you have to go back and reiterate and reiterate and reiterate, because your definition of done will keep moving with it, right? So you have to go back and look at the historical data and see if it's actually still making sense, or does the AI need to be pivoted?
I want people to stop shopping for software and AI tools. I want you to stop. I would ideally want you to look at a strategic, platform approach where whatever you're no longer buying SaaS off the shelf software that you have to fit into. You're now buying capability that you are crafting to fit you for the first time ever. And that's so exciting. It's hard to lift out of historical data and think about what might be possible and reimagine new ways of working in the workflow of the business.
When I hear that AI is something you can implement and it will be a piece of your solution, but yet as you're moving, and we all know how fast things change and new upgrades, better versions are coming out of every single one of these types of tools. How are we in such a fast-paced and critical high-stake environments keeping up with those changes when you're choosing the right AI solution that you deem proper for the right here and now, when you know that things are going to shift inside of your business as well dramatically in the next 6 to 9, 12 months?
I think no matter who you're partnering with or what you're buying or what your capability you're taking on, that partner or host provider needs to be able to adapt and has to demonstrate their adaptability. We've got multimodal capability coming into play with world models and other ways that we've got now robotics and the physical world of the built environment at our fingertips. And so you need to be collaborating with partners and experts that can help you switch out whatever LLM you're using for this workflow, but because the new versions of the LLMs are released all the time, and the capabilities inside those models and the multimodal effect is ever present. And so that's part of future proofing your business, is being flexible and adaptable, and having your partners and solution providers as adaptable as well.
Yeah, as we all know, change as we know it is at its slowest pace or rate right now today. It's only going to be faster as we move forward. And with the rate of change accelerating like it is today, not just partners, but everybody's got to be nimble enough to adapt and pivot, all those kinds of things, because she's going to just take off on us. But you also don't want to be the last adopters either. You want to start playing early, and I would agree with the panel here earlier. Don't be using those public chats because everything that you put in there goes out to the universe, and your strategies, your thinking partners, what makes your company efficient and process driven. That's all that's proprietary stuff. You want to protect those assets.
Yeah, my 3 pro tips for anyone is, if you're using your own LLM on the side of your company in any way, but using company data, and even companies, but based on your size, make sure you're in a paid version so that you don't have to share your data in certain circumstances. And also leverage the folders. If we're talking about, there's so many levels of AI, but if we're talking about basic chat, right? Like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity. And to me, those are like a very basic, so that's so 2025 to me, that AI, that is not how you run a business. I think we're in the current world of agentic AI and generative AI and beyond. And so where you can start to transform workflows is in that future space. But to be safe, create folders. If you're interacting with those, so many people, you can benefit from that, because again, it's holding context. So I may have a folder for, physics homework for my 10th grader, but I also have my writing and LinkedIn posts in another folder, and it's able to hold context for that. And then also using the LLMs to banter against each other is helpful as well.
Oh, you do that too, Jenny?
All the
I've literally
time.
pit them against each other.
I'm like, you're ridiculous. I'm going over here now.
So I think that
I don't like that answer because it was such a bad prompt. Go ahead, Jim.
So I think your point of there's lots of different types of AI. There's lots of different tools that utilize AI. And to Ken's point of change, and you don't want to be the last adopter, but every time a new wrench or hammer or screwdriver comes out, and I use that as an analogy to the new AI tools that come out, you have to decide how much are you staying within, your ecosystem, Jenny, that you referred to, and how many times am I going, okay, I'm going to buy this from one store and this from another store because it's the newest tool that's out there. And some of these are non-insignificant investments to be able to make when you start talking about, some of these deep data tools and things like that, well beyond the LLM models that so much commercial work is being poured into them, that those are hard decisions to make, and when to shift from one to the other, and when to use one versus the other.
Every general contractor I know is strained, right? We have the lowest margins, a very low margin business. And I think it's important that if you have a hiring freeze in any company, or you are limited in your resources, that's a great opportunity to think about how AI can assist, whether it's winning more work. Maybe you need to fill the queue because you've got available hands. And so a lot of what I'm involved in is bid intelligence and being able to win more work, but not using the portals that everybody else uses, using your own company signals, your own secret sauce for how you go out and find work, and your own context of whether it's your marketing department or your chief estimator, what they look for in opportunities. I see signals as early as permits being pulled and public meetings at local municipalities being used to find more work. And so that's, to me, where we are growing and expanding what was ever possible without threatening the existing humans in place.
Yeah, let me build on that, because before they had to go to the municipal, look at the records, pull the data. It would take weeks, months, and now with, like you said, bid intelligence, they're looking at signals within hours. As soon as a paper goes out, they can capture that. So it's actually an exciting time for the construction industry. And I was reading that report from McKinsey saying that the construction industry is the last to adopt. I'm like, rightly so. I see the opportunity. There's so much opportunity for AI in the construction industry that is yet to be discovered.
You know, the curve we've always talked about at the bane of our existence, and I think it was Dodge Data, where we were at least above agriculture. Well, I'm here to tell you, I have agriculture clients doing amazing things with AI, whether it's just reimagining their sales process so that the executives can have more time to run the business and find more partnerships and deal with, important things. And
This is where the opportunity is in construction, I believe, for any firm who adopts AI as a multiplier. And that is not, beyond the work acquisition, now it's work execution. And where this can come into play is, what are those drivers that the industry isn't very productive, and that is the amount of rework that can go on, schedule compression and waiting, incident reduction and incidents, safety, and then cycle time on decisions from RFIs and submittals and change orders. I think if you get your processes down through SOPs, you can use AI to help you map out with data a couple of examples. So rework as a percent of contract value. How often is that reoccurring? Average RFI turnaround time. Are we capturing change orders timely? Are we capturing all of them? Percentage of schedule variance by phases as you're doing your long and short-term interval planning, or percentage of labor hours spent waiting and reworking, like I mentioned. If we can capture data through AI on some of those pain points in construction, that's where we can get those margins and gross profits up to beat estimate rather than try to at least hit bud estimate.
Ken, that's a
Then,
perfect.
anything we can manufacture in construction is just a big bonus.
Ken, what you're mentioning is so perfect. And a lot of people think they can do that in the siloed tools they have, like the popular project management tools and the bidding tools and all the different silos we have. But the power of AI is when you bring all that together across.
And they're talking to each other.
Some people have,
and they talk to each other.
Some people have done a really good job of that with their data in maybe a data warehouse, a data lake, and then they've brought to life through dashboards in Power BI or Tableau. But now you can start to build on top of that even and talk to and interact in real time with your data that sits across in an Ask AI capability, or like a company's second brain, if you will. And I think that's ever more important because all the systems of record keep promising AI. Well, they've all sprinkled AI in, but they still can't go across.
AI is pretty good at helping you clean data. I mean, as AI consultants, we have to look at the data, and how many times I've come across with missing data especially on a construction spreadsheet. It's just not there. And they go digging for it, and was never captured. So AI is very good at flagging the missing data and say, hey, we need to look at this before you make a decision on any of your ongoing project work.
I'm curious now in this moment of talking about the leverage of using AI. Would you use it to ensure that you haven't missed anything and have it retested? Or would somebody actually say, tell me what the gaps are given what data you already have? Because AI could potentially give you any of the missing measurements as well. You'd have to verify it.
Well, sometimes human lives are dependent on it, so I wouldn't just ask AI to analyze that and give you some data, made up data, because AI is very good at making up data. So I would go back and retest it, especially in structural engineering. I mean, you miss one decimal point here and there, and the whole building will fall. Happens.
Yeah, that's where I think the parameters are so key, that you're not using public LLMs for that. I mean, that's a perfect example, of building your own context engine that uses only verified appropriate standards, that is using the mind share of the requirements, and I think that's very important.
Another technology in construction is 3D BIM or building information modeling. And I can see it hitchhiking to AI here, where it's helping with collision detection and clashes and coordination of the mechanical trades and things like that. It also can do detection when you're missing those measurements or dimensions and all that. That 3D BIM modeling's been around for probably 15, 20 years, maybe more out west and east. However, I can just imagine what if they attach AI to that, what that could do for contracting in general as well.
Yeah, I mean, the leverage of responsible usage is a huge conversation right now. And this isn't just when we talk about it, it's like, well, responsible is making sure that you're owning your own information, leveraging it only to be more creative. Like responsible is, not using PII in these circumstances, which is so huge in healthcare. So then when we think about it in this construction aerospace field, and you guys are talking to and organizations about what does this look like? What's it going to be like for your field staff or people that are having to then extract what you've given them that was maybe potentially AI generated? How are you seeing the needle move as far as like influence and transparency through training, essentially? Like I see it as training, right? You're essentially teaching people what and how and what's responsible. We lost one person here, but hopefully he'll come back on. I don't want to stop the conversation. So I'd love each of your perspectives on that, if you don't mind.
I mean, I think part of what it is training for sure, but also serving up. We have an exodus of expertise going out right now with retiring workforce, and the newer generations don't know all the things that a superintendent has learned over 40 years on the nuances of how they do their work. And so I'm seeing projects, for example, where just as simple meeting minutes, being able to record transcripts and then feed that into the company template, the company standard for different types of project meetings, like project management meetings, AOC meetings, and field meetings with your prescribed company template and the areas and sections that you require for each scope of work and all the trade conversations, the budget and schedule, but then also allowing AI to serve up some AI insights. And if you connect that to your repositories and your project management systems, you have a very powerful way to assist and more accelerate the learning of more junior staff.
You can't forget the human component to this. So knowledge transfer is a major issue, as Jenny mentioned. AI can be a thinking partner. We also have to have a human component. And I'll check off an earlier conversation we had is the trust part. So there's a trust but verify in all this. And that is through trust the thinking partner, trust what it's telling you, but you need to verify and validate, especially in this gap of knowledge transfer. My analogies would be, remember when the calculator came out, you needed to know basic math and not rely because you might have hit the wrong key and say, oh, that's the answer. But you got to have intuition to know, oh, wait a minute. And we do know AI can be prone to hallucinating. Even Google searches when the internet came. You can ask Google something, but if it's not telling you exactly what you intended, you have to have that intuition to know that and then go verify. Otherwise, if you're just waiting for the answer, because, boy, I got that done quick. Yeah, I don't think you get to this wisdom phase that is a big part of knowledge transfer.
I think it's important that you're training it. When you get back an answer that's total garbage, you need to be rating that answer so that it can learn and that it can understand for the future. And you should be able to have in the enterprise AI, if it's real AI done well, it's traceable. You can see exactly where it came up with the answer. And maybe it learned a first version of an SOP, for example, and it's outdated. So then you remove that from its knowledge base. But you have to have transparency, traceability, all the ilities to be enterprise grade scalable AI.
Good point, Jenny. Do you recommend asking AI for its sources?
Always. Just like you can see Google sources. And I think now, you should be questioning everything, especially if you're using a generic LLM and not your own internal engine or brain.
And a lot of the young generation, like Ken, you mentioned, they are proficient in AI, but they don't have the field knowledge and the years of knowledge that, the older generation has, because they have seen it, they've done it by hand. So they know how to do it. Even if AI fails, they'll go back and do it. But I worry about the younger generation who only relies on AI and not the field experience. So I think it's a thin, like a balance we have to create where they also learn from the field at the same time they're using AI to assist them so they can, go at it and work faster, maybe learn faster. And of course, trainings, you have to keep up with, you have to train your AI, but also you have to do self-awareness training as yourself, You need to know how to
I
make a
think the
judgment
biggest
call. And I think that's what's going to be very important at the end of the day is your AI smart enough to help you make that judgment call?
That's a great point, Manu. I think we're doing a disservice to our staff and our teams if we're not training them on critical thinking and how to consider the answers we get. I had a 20 something year old ask me after a recent keynote, but Jenny, how do I know if it's wrong? I don't have the experience. I'm like, that's a great point. I don't have all the answers, but I would say, just like making a new recipe for the first time, you don't have context if the souffle is supposed to do whatever it does. And I still can't get my roast to be right, even with all the meat thermometers. But the point is we have to be training, just like we're training our young people in K through 12 to have a growth mindset and to have, rather than a fixed mindset, it's training people to be okay with the discomfort of not knowing everything and being adaptable and being curious.
Yeah, and I would hitchhike off both of you when it comes to judgment and critical thinking. If there's one essential quality a superintendent or foreman must possess, I believe, in today's construction world, it's the ability to anticipate. In construction, we're basically professional problem solvers. But what we're trying to do to protect that margin is anticipate steady workflow, anticipate potential safety hazards, anticipate a problem before it becomes a problem. And so we still need all those human components in addition to the technology enhancements that come with it.
One of the best applications I've seen of AI is in frontline personnel that are managers, but they're new managers of other people. And so in this circumstance, they had a very high attrition rate, and the goal was to reduce it using AI based on having a mentor in the palm of your hand through a simple interface such as a WhatsApp, but the AI was built into it. So managers could ask delicate questions or learn, like, why is this person always going to the bathroom? Or why is this person always leaving for a break all the time? Instead of getting angry with them, where they would just throw their arms up and quit, they have learned to ask better questions. So maybe they have a condition that makes it so they need to take more breaks. And so there's more empathy built into this little mentor mindset in the palm of their hand. And I think a lot of frontline workers, construction workers, the field, anyone, especially with multilingual crews out there, to be able to have a lifeline to the answers. They could have read the manual when they onboarded years ago, but that doesn't mean they can recall it in the moment. And I'll say we're seeing outcomes of a 60% improvement on attrition in this particular example, and it's amazing.
Wow. I love the experiences that you guys have brought forward, because I think that, people do need to hear that it's a tool, it's a potential transformation that can really key in on some of the areas that need like a concrete path forward. But I also, the biggest thing here that I'm happy that you guys continue to talk about is people are so critical in every dimension of this. Even if you were to implement something that removes an individual's role and their processes, it should free them up for other creative things that they can be serving in the business. And this is one of the main reasons why Shifting Pathways is here, is to do the best at articulating the fact that AI is here, it's available. It isn't going to change everybody's world entirely, but it is something you've got to learn. And at the same time, who are the right people? Like who has the experience that they can validate and verify these things? So I love the depth of insight that you guys have provided, especially because it's construction, where a lot of things, like Manu, you had mentioned, it's like one of the last industries to be taking it on, but I don't understand why, because as you guys mentioned, there's so many examples on how it can be leveraged right now. As far as transformations go, of course, the change management heartbeat is always so big for me. So I think that I caught some really great stuff here about how you would manage the transformation and where to start from beginning to end to be able to see that happen.
Yeah, Sap. Now I would hitchhike off of what you just said and the perception that AI will eliminate jobs and things like that. The way I've been looking at this and packaging it is that if you're a $200 million contractor today, when you become $300 million and $350, what you'll probably do is AI will help you scale. And businesses are, no matter what business, it's construction, any business today, scale is a very popular executive mindset. And that is growing the business, but keeping overhead in check. And I think AI will allow us to do that. It may not eliminate jobs in the present, but it'll allow us to do more with less in the future so that businesses can scale.
We've all heard the quote, AI may not replace your job, but it will replace people who use AI will replace
Yes,
your job. So, that's almost tired now, but
it's true.
but Sapna, to your point too, I would end with do not take for granted the basics. Change management 101 is still vital.
Great.
Anything from you, Manu, that you
Well,
would
I was
like to
just
share?
thinking, AI is probably going to be embedded in, robotics and all that. And think about what dangerous jobs the robots can do in construction that the humans should not be doing anyways. So eventually, the critical thinking hopefully will stay with the humans, but there's some dangerous jobs that I would hope in the future that robots are taking over in the construction.
I think you just opened a whole
I
nother
did, I
can of
know, but I was
worms.
just
Because
thinking.
I would
Yeah.
love to that's going to have to be a different conversation, because there's so much leverage that sentence alone is so debatable on whether people trust it and what can actually really happen. Because in health, I'm imagining somebody that's at 30,000 feet trying to work on a building. Then I'm imagining a patient getting support from a robot. No, thank you. Of course, you guys know these cars riding around with no drivers anymore. A lot of parents say, I'd rather have this automated thing driving my teenager around than this human who makes so many easier mistakes, or I don't trust. I don't know. So, thanks, Manu. You just opened up a whole nother conversation, but I have to.
And thanks for robotic surgery, right? I mean, we've
We
already
got
got
robotic
robots
surgery.
doing eye surgery and very delicate things that are very important, and robots that are going into natural disasters to help save humans that are buried under difficult circumstances. So, and after my last Uber or Lyft ride, I will not be letting my teenagers in a car with a human driver ever. Humanoids now, and they're under $5,000. So I can't wait for my household assistant. A dishwasher, dusting, imagine the
Laundry.
possibilities.
My goodness.
Tub and tile. Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for each of your time on it. It was a good conversation with folks that are coming from different walks of life, but deep experience in the field, and being able to hear your different experiences and your inputs was invaluable to me. And I'm sure it will be for many others to listen in, just to create some engagement on the recording. I do want people that are listen to this to think about what's one thing you wish that more leaders understood before they deployed AI in high stake environments. And I think, part of these conversations is really to start gleaning some of what these questions are and what people are really asking their leaders to know more about, and how they're equipping themselves more appropriately for these types of environments and work projects.
I reflect on our whole podcast here today. I've been taking notes, and I've put a wrapper on this through the lens of construction companies. And I would just say that the competitive advantage won't come from adopting AI. I think it'll come from reducing variability through operational discipline to do things faster than your competitors. As we mentioned early on, safety builds the bridge. That's where executive attention is already. Operational discipline lays the foundation for execution all in your firms. And then AI, I think, will scale the results into above market profitability if you can put all of those pieces together.
The one thing I would add that I wish leaders knew is that you don't have to start with your most critical, risk-prone workflow. There's a whole back office of operating a construction company, and there is a way to do it safely. I would encourage people to a partner or find an advisor or someone that can help you along the way to see your blind spots. Because anyone that's ever implemented an ERP, for example, or a large project management system did not do it internally with their own staff. They usually had help. So ask for help. It's okay.
Thank you all so much. And we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. If this resonated, connect with me and your panelists and keep coming back to Shifting Pathways for more conversations. Practical, honest, and built for how work is changing.